do see Mr. Tiger, and I'm looking for Doman. I don't see him in our voice chat just yet, but I think our handlers backstage might be getting him in. Fister says,
wait, we have handlers? We have budget for handlers now?
No. When I say handlers, obviously, I mean there's a kill switch.
Okay, because if we have handlers, I don't expect to go all the way downstairs for my ghost energy in the future. I'm just saying.
How are you, gentlemen? Good evening and welcome.
Hey, you guys.
Happy Thursday or Friday, as the case may be.
Yeah, now, listen, everybody needs to know this about Doman. Doman, where are you right now? You're not where it's like barely after lunch and getting ready to enjoy your evening like Tiger. It's the middle of the night, right?
Oh, sure. I work from Barcelona. So as some of you know, Scopley has offices pretty much all over the world. So I'm over there in Spain. It's currently 2 a.m. here, and I'm just chilling here with my late night coffee and getting ready for this.
Griffin,
thank you for being here. That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
2 o'clock in the morning. That's the dedication that we've got from our game design team here. And obviously, this is Doman's first time for being on our stage. Welcome to Talking Trek. Mr. Tiger is becoming quite the pro. And I am obviously very, very grateful that you guys are back here, Mr. Tiger. Thank you so much for being here. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got very limited time in which to do it. So, Mr. Tiger, first of all, if you don't mind, would you introduce to our audience who might not have heard your voice before, who may not know much about the design? You've been with Scopley for a real long time. You've designed a number of feature arcs for the players. Tell the audience who might not know who you are, how long you've been with the company, what you've worked on, and why some of their content, some of the content you've built, has been some of their favorite. What have you done for us?
What a great intro. Thanks, DJ. Hi, guys. My name's Tiger. You can call me Mr. Tiger if you'd like. If you want to show that.
That's Mr. Tiger to you people out there.
Mr. Tiger. Okay.
Exactly. Actually, it's because of DJ that my name became that. I used to go by Tiger, but you were the first to call me that. I was like, I kind of like that. That's cool.
We're
going with it.
Yeah, we're gonna stick with it there. The Bajoran faction, one of the game's all-time favorites. That was you.
Yeah, so actually I've been at Scopley for 4 years now, almost coming up on 4 years. And so Bajoran was one of the early things that I worked on, which is a ton of fun. NX01, which is a lot of fun with the Zindi and the different types there. Mirror Universe, Voyager, a bunch of really cool stuff. And now I am very blessed to work on Wrath of Khan, which is huge. Who doesn't love Wrath of Khan? It's a huge part of the Star Trek universe, and I'm just loving it.
It might be the most iconic movie of all time, whether you take the older properties, the newer properties. Wrath of Khan is referred to as many as the movie of the franchise. There's so much icon in that movie, and so when you guys shared with me that you guys were working on Wrath of Khan, this to me felt like, Mr. Tiger, this was another opportunity at TNG, right? Something huge, something iconic. Like this was always gonna be a big feature. It didn't matter what you guys were working on in the pipeline. This was always going to be a huge project for you guys, right?
There's pressure to it, but there's also excitement that comes with it, and so super thankful to work with D on this. He is super competent, and yeah, we're excited to talk about some of the cool stuff and hear what you have to think and have some dialogue on it.
Doman, this is your first time on our stage. We appreciate that, but the audience has gotten a lot of you over the last couple of weeks because Beck released a video introducing you to the community and your work on the independent archives. Of course, now we know that you're doing some work here with Away Teams and Wrath of Khan with Mr. Tiger. Tell us a little bit about your background here, and you wasted no time jumping in because the independent archives, I watched your interview with Beck on that. You guys have some very lofty goals with that, and not only did you work on implementing the independent archive updates here over the last couple of months, but then you were also neck deep in Wrath of Khan as well.
Yeah, when it comes to my involvement, or like just when I came at Scopley, I guess I am among the newer people in the team. I started by working in some quality of life improvements, more along the lines of some Stuvi improvements, stuff like that. And then, yes, my first arc was Q Continuum, and that included the whole independent archives project. And we had a whole bunch of research done on just about every loop and how players engage with them. And then, of course, that's how we ended up including it into Q Continuum. And yeah, Khan is now my second arc. When it comes to Q Continuum, that was already amazing for me because I was always a huge fan of Q, so that was kind of like a mini dream come true. And then when it comes to Wrath of Khan, it's kind of like that, but like 10 times bigger because it's literally my first introduction to Star Trek as a kid. So just being able to work on something like Wrath of Khan is absolutely amazing.
Well, that's awesome. And
it's great to know that both of them just love Star Trek.
Exactly.
You know, you can get a job anywhere doing video game design, but the fact that you have that love and passion for the franchise, man, that's incredible.
Yeah, I was going to absolutely point that out. The fact that Wrath of Khan is what got him into Star Trek as a young person. That's cool that you're a fan, and I'm sure that must be very, very exciting to be able to come back and work on that. So we've got a lot to get into tonight. First question, this is going to be what we have to do tonight, folks. We're going to do some quick questions. I'm going to let D answer this because he did already answer this with Beck, and we'll refer you over to startrekfleetcommand.com to check out that video. But Fisty asked, hey, great work on the Devore and Fisha being archived. Heard that the Franklin series of ships, Doman, are on the way. You had mentioned Stella. Is Stella in the mix? Are you feeling like that is going to be able to happen this year?
I would say it's right up there at the top of the list. I would say between Stella and Meridian, those are probably our two candidates for, let's say, when it comes to these click-heavy, time-consuming loops. Yeah, they're probably our top priority. So I think it's a good bet to say. You never know how it's going to happen when we end up prioritizing things as we work on other arcs. It's definitely a super complex loop, and this means that this adds to the overall workload tied to this particular independent archives. So I assume that if it ends up being added into any new arc coming up this year, most likely it's going to be done not in a way what we're doing right now with Wrath of Khan, where we are able to take, let's say, 4 fairly simple, or like you could even say like we're just taking 2 loops and, you know, including everything into 2 tentpoles, but more so as, let's say, as one individual archive in one arc. So, you know, more just focusing on that one and making sure it gets done rather than creating like a massive bundle of several archives together. Just because of the complexity, but otherwise, yeah, I think it's a very good bet that it ends up being in by the end of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of clicks in there, so absolutely, we'll be looking forward to that. Well, let's get into the new content here. Wrath of Khan, Tiger. I joked just a couple of minutes before the show had really started that you and I had a chance to talk before the arc started, and you asked if there were enough currencies to keep me happy in this arc. And I'm like, no, I feel like you haven't set your record. Feel like you're going to need to throw in a few more. And I, much to my surprise, you actually took me up on that offer. There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on with this arc. This might be one of the most in-depth and most mechanically detailed arcs that you've ever released into Star Trek Fleet Command. So I would like very much to kind of start at the very beginning. When we're talking about getting involved with this new expanded Augment faction, it starts with the hostiles. When you were designing this, how close to your original conception did this thing come out when it came to the design layout of your feature?
A little fact about me, I always like to try new things. Sometimes they work well, sometimes they need improvement. Only time will tell. For this, I, again, was trying something a little bit different, and so I think it's going to take some time. I think this is like, you can quote me on this. I probably said this on every podcast. Give it some time, folks. Let's see how things shake out. And I'm going to say the same thing here, but we're also monitoring to see how things scale. I wanted to reward the most engaged players and reduce their grind. So I've seen a lot of people interacting and thinking, oh, it's 4 grinds. That's not the intention. And so the intention here is that we have 4 different hostiles, or 4 different hostile loots. One is associated with every grade. So if you're a grade 6 player, you should be getting the best bang for your buck, right? You're getting the epic credits. And then a little bit of the rare and a little bit of the uncommon. If you're a lower level player, you're only going to be getting the common. However, one of the learnings that I've tried to apply here is that I don't like hard gates. I don't think players like hard gates. And so I'd rather have soft gates. And so every refinery is open to every player from Ops 26 plus. So you can see the epic grind if you're low level, and it can look like 4 grinds, but you're not supposed to have to do that. And so the intention here is kind of pick your own adventure. You choose which refineries are best suited to you where you are at right now, and you kind of pick that one. So rather than excluding players, I included, but by including, there's a whole lot more to do. And so I'm going to monitor to see how this scales. Some of the details that I think are important, though, is that on day 1, every refinery is not on cooldown, but the epic refinery is actually a 5-day cycle. And the rare one is, I think, 4 days and then 3 days or something like this. And they go, oh, sorry, it's 5, 3, 2, 1. And so while it does feel extensive initially, I'm hoping that this kind of balances out in the long run, and it truly does eventually become a pick your own spot. Where if I'm hitting epics, I'm getting a little bit of the other ones, and maybe sometimes I want to hit a common. And just it keeps it, I'm hoping, interesting. And so that's where I'll start with that. But let's have a discussion on this, because there's a lot to unpack on how these work and the intention behind them.
Well, that is a great thing for us to start on, because that was one of my first questions to you, is that this does feel like 4 grinds. And we're not even going to talk about the events, guys. Again, remembering that the events are nothing to do with here. We're talking about just the currencies and then the refines. Yeah. Now, you know the Star Trek Fleet Command community, especially the most engaged community, they love to min-max everything. So not only are they looking at all 4 currencies, Mr. Tiger, they're also looking at double pulls of all 4 currencies. You know, we talk about this every time you come on, and every time you come on, you're like, guys, stretch goals were never meant to be done on day 1. You know, we want it all. We want everything. We want it right now. Are you saying that the loot that comes from these hostels was really intended for players to be focused on what they wanted or where they naturally felt like they were going to be? In other words, G6 players by design would pretty much just be earning a majority of epic Wrath credits with a trinkle of the rest of them. And G5 players were earning a majority of rare with a trinkle of the rest of them. Is that kind of how we're looking at it?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, that it's kind of an invisible little detail, but I understand also that G6 players actually have less cargo to work with. And so that's why you see a bit more fall off and a bit less requirements on how much resource that those players need at the epic bracket, is because, hey, their ships can't actually carry as much. And if I were to put tons of common on there, you might actually fill up on common before you even can get the epics that you want. And so there's a couple details like that, and maybe they don't work perfectly. I do want to monitor, and I am monitoring, and there will be changes coming if needed, especially because this is an arc, right? And this is just the start, guys. So let's keep giving that feedback, and we can actually get some changes if we need to. But that's kind of some of the reasoning behind it. And yes, it is a trickle down. You get what you need primarily, and you get a little trickle of everything below that. So this actually is really, really great insight. If I am meant to primarily be hitting one target, which, by the way, I love. Okay, if the goal for me is to be hitting one hostile instead of 4, would it be possible then to consider adding in the previous grade of credits as you go higher? For example, in the Epic Hijacked Exchange, we do have our Epic credits in there, but it would be nice maybe to have a little rare and uncommon and common. And the reason really common being the big one, Mr. Tiger, because all of the favors require lots and lots of common, thousands of common, in fact. If we take a look at the favor costs, it's significant there. So if I was asking you your design intent with the favors and how that feeds into a pick your path kind of thing, are the favors meant to be wildly important to the player base? Should they be a priority? Favors are supposed to be really good, especially for G6, because I believe this is some of the strongest cost efficiency we've done, maybe ever, but definitely recently for G6. Like, it's been pretty tight up till now. And so, I definitely want people getting that. And it is going to take some time. In terms of, can we add credits of lower rarity into higher rarity chests? I think that's interesting. I'm looking into some different ideas. I also think that, like, maybe it wasn't such a great idea to have no loot at all, like no common loot at all on the epics. Maybe we want to put some loot back on those guys. Like, there's a couple different things I'm exploring. So just keep the feedback coming, and there are different things we're looking into. Another thing that I thought was really interesting was there's no trade down right now. I like trade downs, man. I like trade downs. I mean, if you've seen all my other features, I always do trade downs. We can do that here. And I thought it could be interesting to allow players to just turn their epics into rares and turn their rares into uncommons. So that way you don't necessarily need to just tack on an extra currency, but your one becomes, I guess, quote, 4 in a way. So
for
you
sure,
just get more value for it, right?
If
so a couple ideas that I'm exploring.
Yeah, if you look at the Mirror Universe, that was actually a huge piece of your strategy, a huge piece of your design was to really work those cooldowns. Because in the Mirror Universe, for example, we did have a lot of need for the common mirror dust. And you came out and said, listen, hey, don't panic here a little bit. Like in the beginning, to get through some of those prerequisite hurdles, you did actually suggest trading down your rare and uncommon, at least to the common, to get through some of those higher requirements. A trade down probably would absolutely fix this 4 grind thing. Mainly because you do have a lot of players that are trying to work all of those exchanges. Now, early on, you still have players that are going to be chasing reputation, but if the credits were there or there was a trade mechanic for those credits, that would allow players to focus on the bundles that they can hit and focus on the hostiles they can hit, but then on the favors too. Griffin, what do you think about the trade down idea?
I think that it's a great idea, but another alternative, Mr. Tiger, that I would like to propose to you, instead of, or in addition to a trade down, or definitely instead of adding common loot to these higher end enemies, because as the G6 player, you're right, I have little to no cargo to work with, is some other form of efficiency or artifact or research or fleet commander ability to reduce or eliminate the need for those common resources for me in the first place if I were to pursue that new path. So there are many ways to attack efficiencies other than just, putting more loot on a ship that we don't really have room for.
Yeah, that's true.
I trust that you will find the best way to do that.
I mean, perhaps there could be loot chests introduced. Right now, the loot chests are dropping another currency, which we're going to talk about here in just a moment. But yeah, that was where I really kind of wanted to start with you, Mr. Tiger, is just, these different currencies right now do have players feeling like they've got to hit these 4 hostiles, in particular because of the favor cost. I know, for example, I've been grinding in the 40 level space, which I'm sure is annoying to all the G4 players.
Annoying. I get so much hate mail. I'm bringing in my 2 GS31s. I'm hitting 10 of them every 50 seconds. There's nothing left for anybody else.
I was doing the same thing. I was just beaming hostiles.
That's all I'm hearing is greedy. Yeah. Actually, by the way, one of the things that I think is interesting here, rather than hitting every hostile, you can strategically hit at certain points. And that was kind of intentional. So I probably want uncommon. I definitely want everyone to open every chest. I'll say that. Okay. So you want to be opening every chest. I'm aware of that. And so what's the best way to do it? It's probably not hitting commons, because if you're hitting only commons, sure, you're getting more common loot, but you're not getting anything else. If you're hitting some uncommons, now you're getting a lot of uncommon and a little less common, but still common. And so you need to kind of strategize exactly where you should hit to get the best bang for your buck. And I think that's something that's going to take some time to figure out. And also it's probably going to be a little different for everyone depending on what options you have available to you. I think that's part of the fun. I think that it might be a little bit too complex in hindsight looking back on it. There's probably things we can do to polish it, and there's things we will do to polish it. But that was the intention, is to kind of explore and find something that works and kind of get a little of both in some places, and just that kind of behavior.
Guys, in the graphics room right now, if you're listening in podcast form, we do have a chart up that is going to kind of speak to what Mr. Tiger was just talking about, and I'll pull it on screen now. This right here, Mr. Tiger, if you're looking at your screen, is the breakdown of loot. And as you would indicate, level 40, for example, being the one that's going to earn you the absolute most amount of common loot. But what we have discovered here is that you've actually built a bell curve, so to speak. For example, starting at level 42 hostiles, you start to back off on that common loot almost to the exact same number as the level 38 hostile, but now it's starting to add some uncommon. So what you're seeing in this chart is almost a bell curve of loot, guys, where the common will go up, and then as the common starts to come back down, you start to see the increase of uncommon, and the same thing with rare and epic. The issue, I think, that what players are discovering here is, depending on your level, Mr. Tiger, loot crews are obviously being very, very helpful here. So the reason that we might feel like there are 4 grinds here is because there is absolutely no better place to min-max that particular currency than in what we're referring to as the decade system. All right. Your level 40s for common,
nice.
the level 50s for uncommon, the level 60s for rare, and then whatever you can do in G6. That will absolutely result in the most amount of loot. So that's where players have kind of strategically discovered, I can still hit fewer hostiles by hitting these decade hostiles, but that's where they're pretty much exclusively kind of mathematically motivated to go. And that's why it does feel like 4 different hostiles. I know that you are also super infamous for, as you said a few minutes ago, let's see how this plays out. And that has always held true with your arcs. As a matter of fact, I remember a lot of the same kind of conversations with premium Rift keys and the Mirror Universe Rift keys and all that stuff going on with Mirror Universe. And you very effectively solved that over the course of the Mirror Universe run. If players are feeling overwhelmed by this particular early set of grind, all right, as Arani points out, it's just too much grinding right now to get each material refine. Do you expect, Mr. Tiger, that this grind is going to grow easier over time, or do you have plans or tools without spoiling anything? I mean, is this going to be like Mirror Universe and we're going to see this kind of level out to be a traditional level of grind moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. The intention is not that you have to min-max to be able to participate, because I'm going to be real, like, to start, it's a lot of hostiles to hit. I know this. I'm in there playing too, right? So it's going to scale. I'm going to drop a couple hints here. One, wow, those revenge hostiles dropped twice the loot. Sure would be awesome if I could turn off that weapon and auto farm. That's the first thing I'll say. I wonder if they're a threat right now, if they could actually become my friend later. Interesting.
Oh my!
So
well, there you go.
And then
okay.
What if I were to drop a couple ships in different systems, strategically placed, that I could just kind of get all that loot for free? Interesting. Also, don't dismiss Carol Marcus, who has 700% loot bonus. We're gonna get that at some point, right? Like, she's coming. I understand it's gonna be a while, but it's there. And also, I understand there's a favor that we can't max out yet because you can only get to, I think, like 50% by the time you hit the bracket requirement, which is going to take some time to get to. But once you get to that, that's going to help as well. And then also, we have another month to follow. I wonder what's going to come in the following months to help with this. I probably will just leave it at, hundreds of kills, right? I like to leave things at maximum grind.
Yeah, absolutely right.
There's more coming. That's going to absolutely help with that. And so it's the beginning. I understand that there's kind of the pain points to start. I totally get that. It's hard to avoid that at times, but we definitely want to help where we can. But there's a lot more coming, and I can't wait to see how this scales. I'm very excited to see how it scales.
All right. Feeling a little bit relieved to hear that you've got a plan down the road. And I am going to remind you guys, Divine says, look at Zindi, Pain, month 1. Look at Mirror Universe, Pain, month 1. Tiger, you are a guy that likes to just inflict maximum destruction and then be like, oh, guys, I got you. I got you guys.
A chance to blow you up. It's not 100% chance. Come on, give me a break.
So tools definitely coming, and some of those tools are already beginning to present themselves in away teams. Doman, I'd like to shift over to you just for a second, just to kind of keep you awake, because I don't want to. We've got more to talk about with these hostiles and the currencies and how it feeds the ATA loop, but with regards to these new assignments that you guys have designed, these new assignments are in fact meant to come back and feed into this loop by increasing officer progression, by increasing ship progression, and then, of course, increasing Fleet Commander Con progression through a grinder's path and through those skills and so forth with the conquest. D, if you were speaking to a player right now who has not, admittedly, have had a huge opportunity to invest in the ATAs because the augment grind is just now kind of booting up, what is it that players should be looking forward to first when they're starting to investigate and starting to play with these ATAs? Is there a place where players should be kind of leaning into this feature to begin with to give them maximum efficiency as they begin the ATA journey?
Oh, for sure. I think when it comes to P1 ATAs, First thing, it really depends on what your priorities are as a player right now. If you take a look at the Augment faction and everything that's in there, from all the officer gachas that we have to direct officer sourcing to the favors and everything, depending on what's important for you there, especially if those things are officers, you're going to see that the away team's research tree, the reworked version of it, is going to be playing directly into that hand. So if your interest is, hey, I really want to invest into officers, I would like to make sure that I unlock them sooner, that they are cheaper for me as a player, the awaiting tree is something that you want to look at. And it has been designed with basically this in mind as the one of the core visions tied to the feature itself. It starts off very slowly, and this is something that's okay, it's expected. I would say don't feel like you have to rush in immediately and just push through everything. This feature is a consequence of basically us ignoring away teams for years. Now we're finally making it relevant, and we want it to be relevant not just in this month, but also after that. So this is a process. It's a long-term thing that we want you to engage with. We want you to come back here, every couple of days, depending on how you feel like in terms of should you be investing into speed ups and really push through it, or should you be investing into refresh tokens that you get like the best possible awaiting assignments. But yeah, basically kind of touching on that, like as you're going to be looking at the away team's research tree, you are going to see that it's going to start off fairly slowly. You're first going to have to unlock the P1 ATAs, and then you're going to have a couple of nodes that are going to be either upgrading your officer stats, because as you're going to be able to see, compared to the normal away team assignments, the priority 1 away team assignments are actually quite hard to complete, especially when it comes to getting the critical success. We see, just like from data right now, I can share it, that significantly more players end up failing this just because they're not meeting the criteria. You have to have much stronger officers. You have to have much better officer stats to be able to deal with those. And it's part of the challenge. It's part of the process and your growth as a player, someone who's investing into officers, to go through that, right? And then as you kind of go through that period, as you're able to do this consistently, as this becomes easier for you, this is where the gateway kind of opens for you to take a look at everything that comes after. And this means uncommon assignments, rare assignments, epic assignments, the special conquests that end up sourcing Khan and his skill points, and full officer unlocks. And then what's else in the research tree? You end up having a whole bunch of either officer unlocks or officer cost efficiency unlocks.
One of the things that I'd like to pull out here as we're looking at this particular tree, all right, is specifically at the fact that you have officer stats up front here. Tactical aggression, which is attack, the hypo spray technology, which is your health, and rerouting to shields, this is your defense stat. I have noticed and remember, I don't know how many of you guys may or may not remember when away teams assignments first came out, there was a lot of failure. A lot of people came out because and actually, if you remember, Griffin, when they first came out, those features, same thing as you could now. This is not unexpected to me because you could not max those assignments then either. The biggest players in the game were unable to get 100% on their largest assignments. It took a while to grow into that. Doman, are you saying that this away team's research is absolutely necessary, especially the officer stats? It's going to be necessary in order to long-term be successful with the failure rate of ATAs. Is that why it's at the front of the tree?
Oh, for sure. It's a huge part of that. And we kind of try to play into this through some other things in terms of what we're introducing as well. So, for example, you can see that Khan himself, he also has a node where he significantly increases your officer stats, for example. So there are different things that are going to be playing into this entire thing. And we introduced a couple of new traits that are on the new officers, both in update 78 and 79, that are going to be feeding into this, so that we do end up having like some novelty kind of trickling in and giving players like a process to be able to acquire these things and basically build towards that. So yeah, for sure, it's like I said before at the very beginning, we ignored this feature for a very long time. Now is the time. This was the opportunity for us to be able to revitalize this. And we basically, and this is why this update is so huge, because we haven't even started talking about the away team store. But yeah, we wanted to make sure that if you're going to be revitalize it, we make sure that this is a long-term thing, something that players are going to be able to play around with for months to come, not just something that comes in 1 month and then becomes obsolete in the other.
Let me ask you this question regarding the away teams, because I see that people are talking about the stats and they understand and maybe appreciate the challenge of those, but these assignments are taking significantly longer. The original assignments started at 4 hours, and the biggest assignments in the game were 5 days. With these new assignments now, we are seeing the smallest group, I think, at 5 days, and the largest, which I don't know that anybody's unlocked now just yet, at 15 days. So are players meant to, and this is a very big question, Doman, are players meant to natively let the timer run out on these assignments, or is there a strategy with the speedups?
I mean, speedups are always an option. Refresh tokens are always an option. We try to bring some more attention to these as we revitalize this entire thing, but it's going to be a process as these things end up piling up, right? So if you have one priority one away team slot, and that one is going to, you go on a mission and it's going to last for 4 days, 10 days, whatever. During this time, you're going to have the time to stockpile on some of those bundles that you're able to get in the Augment faction store, right? So as you do that, you're slowly going to go into a loop where you're going to be able to afford to speed these things more often, where you're going to be able to refresh the away teams more often, and kind of optimize your way into what's the best experience for you in terms of priority one away team assignments that you would like to see. So this is where it kind of starts, let's say the ball kind of starts rolling. This is where I think, from my perspective, when in the long term, we end up looking at the Wrath of Khan loop, because I understand the current frustration and everything, feeling overwhelming and massive and all that. But I think in the long term, we're going to see that the way these things end up coming together is going to feel hopefully awesome and just a very smooth, natural experience that's very nicely integrated in the game itself.
So if you want to know who to blame, who to point the guns at on the timer, point them at Tiger. So here's why. I want us to think about relative value for a second here. So if I spend 1 day on my existing assignment, I get the payout of that. Multiply that by 4 and then compare that to my 4-day assignment. What we're doing here is all relative value. And so, yes, it takes longer, but you're getting significantly more. Someone messaged you and told you that you had an assignment that was 10 days. I think the part that they forgot to mention to you is that you get a full officer unlock for that 10 days. Where else is that in the game? Right? And so basically the intention behind the time is that we wanted to give incredibly lucrative rewards. If we're going to revitalize away teams, we're going to revitalize away teams. We're going to give you something insane. And so to justify that, because let's be real, we can't just be handing out officer unlocks every 24 hours. That's so much. We have to put longer timers on it to justify. And so I really want to emphasize relative value. Yes, I understand that they're longer, but just look at what you're getting. And by the way, there's other details in here too that I spent a lot of time really considering. For example, there's no common rewards. There's no Latinum convertible rewards you're going to get from these assignments. They're always going to give you something that is special, something that you can't get for Latinum. So you're going to see only uncommons and above. You're going to see prime things. You're going to see prime particles, for example, and you're going to see officers, good officers, and a lot of shards for those. And so I'm hoping that helps justify. I understand that there's going to be some pains of adapting to the timer, and over time, I would imagine sourcing for speedups and whatnot to become more prevalent in the game. There is going to be some growth there. But even now, even today, tell me that I'm wrong, but where do you compete in terms of time for output?
I don't disagree with that. I as far as the time and the value, totally on board with you there. I believe that, and again, this very well may be just the beginning of a classic Tiger art with the ramp up, right? The pain points that can experience that a player can experience with that ramp up, because there is not a bank of speed ups. There's not a stock of those. So any officers that we put on right now are getting tied up for, in my case here on my screen, 6 days. I've got Rom and 6 of 11 big stat officers. These are my big guys, right? Now, obviously, pointing out that I've only got 87% chance of success rate. I hate that.
But see, that's the answer to the question. That's what everybody is saying. I don't want to lose these officers for 10 days or 15 days. And if the answer to that question is, but hold on a second, if you do, then you're going to get a wildly impressive large amount of officer shards all the way up to an unlock. I mean, you all in the chat may feel completely differently. We're all entitled to our own opinion. But for me, that's a reasonable answer. It's all about investment and then reward for investment. And there are plenty of officers to where maybe you don't want to send BLT out for 10 days, but do you have somebody comparable that you're not using as much that you can afford to lose for 10 or 15 days? If that's what you're getting in return, I think that we really need to consider both ends of that equation rather than an alarming number that we're not used to, which is, 15 days I'm tying up this officer. What about that other alarming number on the other side of the equation, which is what you're going to get?
Yeah. I'll also point out that, and this might just be my experience here, but I have noticed that I've had a few days of the Sigma speed ups. Now, I think this is also super huge to point out. Griffin and I are G6 players, Mr. Tiger, so we're the ones in particular with the speed up concern because it's a whole new Sigma speed up. It's a whole new currency. But just in case players are missing it, if you're G5 and down, these assignments are using the traditional speed ups in which you may have a bank, right? Did you guys tinker with the idea of new speed ups for everybody? And why was it ultimately decided that G5 and down would be able to use the existing currency? Because I would imagine that's actually a blessing to G5 and down.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, I feel like it's a bit of a slap if you say to players, hey, you stockpiled these speed ups. Now you can't use them. Haha. The new cool stuff does nothing. Like, come on. I don't want to be that guy. Like, we want people to be having fun. We definitely do. And by the way, it's the same thing that even if you're G6 and you have to spend Sigma speed ups on your core assignments, the conquests always, the ones that give you full officer unlock, those always cost base speed ups. They don't cost Sigma even if you're a G6 level player. And so there is still something for even you to spend on. And great, it's a 15-day assignment. I can speed through that because as a G6, you probably have the most stockpiled of those speed ups. So hey, there's still even something for them. And so where we did add speed ups, we didn't make it a complete block either. And we want to be involving old currencies. Here's something that the Tiger's learning, guys. I want to use more old currencies, even on the prime nodes. We tried to get away with some prime nodes that used old prime particles so that in the future, when we start sourcing that prime particle, those have a free-to-play path along with some of the other nodes, and it's a cool little package. And so we're trying to do more of that. I'm trying to do more of that, and hopefully it's noticeable.
So let me make sure that I'm coming back on that, because I heard something that I didn't realize. You're saying that G6 players who are using these new Sigma speedups will still have the opportunity to use traditional ATA speedups. Right now, I'm using the Sigmas for my normal assignments, but I will still have an opportunity to use that old stuff. It's not just a smackdown on G6 players. I still have an opportunity to use those at some point.
Yes. The conquest assignments, the ones that give you full officer unlocks and the ones that give you shards for Fleet Commander Con and skill points for Fleet Commander Con, all of those use the base speedups, not Sigma.
Oh, there you go.
Well, those are
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, those are the big ones, right? Aren't those like the 15-day assignments?
Yep, those are the 15-day and 10-day assignments. The longest one you'll get outside of those is 7 days if you get an epic base Sigma.
And now, if I may add, like this is where you can kind of imagine, like if you're gonna be actively claiming those bundles in the Augment faction store, imagine once you have enough of those speed ups, that 10-day duration might not even matter because of that. Of course, you first have to get to the conquests themselves. You have to unlock them in the research tree, but still.
That's actually
the case of ramping up, right?
Yeah, that's actually interesting to point out. I'm not sure that players knew that. Divine says, all right, up to 7 days on an epic with the Sigma might be tough, but going to remind you. All right, I don't need all the reminders, guys, that I'm not a real G6 player. Tiger, they make fun of me because I have squishy ships. Okay, guys.
How dare they?
Right? Okay, I'm an Op 67. At some point, I'm going to be a G6 player. All right. But I want to point out, because I think a lot of players might not have realized this, Tiger, that we will still be able to use those assignments or use those ATA speed ups, and they might end up actually being for some of our most valuable assignments with the conquest, the skill points, and the full officer unlocks. We'll still be able to circle back and use those. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
The other thing I want to draw attention to, I think I saw some comments on this in the chat. I know the, I guess, pain of pulling an epic assignment if you don't have the speed ups to speed through the 7 days. However, again, the ratios get better. So for an example, if I were to run a common G6 assignment that takes 4 days, the reward might be 1,000 Pioneer crests. Okay? So that's 1,000 crests over 4 days. If I look at the epic ones that are 7 days, they actually are dropping 9,000 Pioneer crests. So in terms of ratio, 1 to 9 in payouts versus 4 to 7 in time, it's way better still to get the epics. I understand that there's still a trade-off there, but it's way better. And looking at your screen here, you got lucky. This is a nice rare assignment you got there. So
well,
it's kind of juicy.
Yeah, I know. I did that. And that was actually something I was going to ask D about here in just a second, because I did find this rare assignment. It took me a couple to get to it because I used some of the speed ups that I had banked up over the last 48 hours. Unfortunately, then, when I got this one, I was out of those speed ups. I wasn't able to actually run through and finish this one. But I was able to get this thing started, and it was a 6-day assignment. I started it earlier today, but it has 5,000 crests in it instead of 1,000. That's if Skyquake. That's if it doesn't fail. And you're absolutely right. But again, we're early, and I've done very little of this research. Now, one other thing that I want to point out, D, and I want to ask this question specifically of you. I kind of want to know if maybe I put the cart before the horse. I did my level 1s on these stat assignments because, to me, despite Scopley math, 70%, 80%, 90% is still better than 0%, right? I thought that I'd be willing to take a chance at 87% and think that the odds are in my favor as compared to not having that assignment at all. So I did these level 1s just to kind of skip through and unlock my uncommon assignments, and then skip through. I used all my Pioneer crests just to unlock my rarity of assignments. Do you think that that is a viable strategy, or should players be loading up in the front here? Do you think that there's value in spending your Pioneer crest to get the higher assignments despite the length and despite the shortage of stats?
For me, that's a tough question. Personally, I would invest into stats first.
Oh, crap.
But this is my approach, right? I think what you're doing is fine. You're risking more. What I would do personally is I would invest into stats as much as possible, because you still have to remember when you go above 100%, you are able to reach multiplayer, and this is where you can get even more Pioneer's crests and mats and everything else. So for me, I would first focus on the stats personally, and then as I have these guaranteed claims, I would kind of slowly move towards the different rarities. So I think what you're doing, you're undertaking more risks for rarer assignments.
Yeah, gambling.
But you could already be adding those multipliers up if you actually invested in the stats themselves.
I get it. So in other words, you're agreeing with the chat that I'm just a little bit squishy. Thanks a lot, D. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. All right.
Shout out to everyone. And guess what? If you get Con, all you need is to get Con, rank him up with those. We got stacks of skill points, don't we, everyone? And an XP to rank these guys up. Take them to level 100, get all those free gift skill points, rank up that officer stat. 1,250%. That's going to boost you.
Are you kidding me right now? Are you?
Nope. What are we doing, people, if we're not ranking up Con? Come on.
All right, so we're going to have to talk
I can't buy Con. I'm not allowed to until June.
I'm going to ask your mom.
Oh, my God.
It's not about my mom, Tiger.
He is a listener
It's
of
about
the
the
show.
chat.
He knows what's going on over here. Just ask your mom to buy it for you. All right? There you go. Love it very, very much. All right, Tiger. Let me come back to you on some more of this loop, the currency. So we now are grinding the hostels. We're getting the 4 different kinds of loot, and we're coming in. We're hitting these hijacked exchange. Now, once we get these credits, we're earning the reputation as well. That's going to open up the other items in this store. What's next, though? Because there's other stuff besides just the ciphers. I'm seeing these things that are coming out of the hostel chest. I'm seeing badges and all this other stuff. Walk me through, if you can, a top-down walkthrough of the currencies that you've introduced and what they are used for and their order of importance.
So there is a lot of currencies, but less than I do historically, which is hopefully good, trending in the right direction. So think of it as not 4 currencies, but 1. There is a faction credit that has 4 rarities. So that means there's hostiles that have 4 rarities of this loot, and that loot exchanges into 4 rarities of credits. All those credits are basically used in the same way, just in different flavors. And so every single credit has an officer chest associated with it, which you can rank up. And we did something kind of new and different here, where the outputs of those chests are actually based on how many officers you've already ranked up. So the more you invest in your officers, the better payouts your officer chests get. And there's 1 of those chests per credit currency. So there's a common one, there's an uncommon one, there's a rare, and there's an epic. Each one has specific associated crews, and the higher the rarity, the more modern the crew. And I think modern officers are generally better for most players, and so you want to go for that. However, if you don't have PMC, that is in the common chest, and I think that's probably one of the best crews for a new player, and that's one of the best sources for them that's going to give you shards. So definitely look at those chests. Along the way, there's also a couple other goodies. Like one of the philosophies applied in the faction store here is very much focused on accelerating primarily officers, but just players' games. And so you'll see things like the projectiles that maybe you haven't seen sourcing for before. Maybe you missed it in an event. Maybe it was never in an event. And so you can use your uncommon currency to get those projectiles. Then, in addition to the officers, of course. And then we also have some forbidden texts and some artifacts for epic and rare credits that are in the store there. And those ones actually have pretty low cooldowns. You can claim quite a few of them if you do manage to stack up the credits. I believe some of those are 8 hours. Some of those might even be 4 hours. So you can kind of stack those pretty quick and hopefully help with accelerating your game. And then we kind of move on to some, I guess, special things that I thought were just meaningful. So one of them is a bit of like a lore thing. It's the Ferengi exchange. Rather than having like the Ferengi officers just in a gacha with everyone else, I kind of took some Latinum and I took some emblems, and I took the Ferengi whip is in here too, by the way, if you don't already have it. Because you already have it, it's not going to show. But if you don't have it, this is also where the Ferengi whip is. It's just like a little fun Ferengi exchange with some Latinum and the Ferengi officers. So that's going to be really good, especially for progressing players who need the Ferengi whip. And then we move into some of the cool stretch goal items. So a couple cosmetics there. Also, we put Joaquin in there as a free full unlock when you get to the superior bracket. So as you're progressing through your faction, at some point we just say, hey, here's a free epic officer that's new and fresh and different. And by the way, another detail on Joaquin that is, I think, really cool. He's the first epic that I think maybe ever requires way less shards to upgrade. And so once you get to that bracket and you're progressing with a faction, the philosophy here was kind of you're building affinity with Joaquin as well, and you're kind of participating in Khan's dominance. And so you'll be able to unlock him fully for free, just as a free claim there. And then you'll be able to progress his shards as well by doing conquests and various other side missions that we have available, which we can talk about, by the way, because the champion thing is a whole little bonus side loop. And so we kind of move from all the credit exchanges into kind of some of the more detail and fun and stretch goal side loop things. So these aren't really part of the core experience. They're just nice to haves that reward you once you get to a certain level.
Let me back up and make sure that players heard this piece right, because this is something that is somewhat unprecedented. You're referring to this bundle. This shows 50 shards, but it is labeled as a full unlock that unlocks at the superior reputation band. You're saying that this is a full unlock, 50 shards, unlocks that officer, and it's absolutely free. Is it going to have a credit cost, or is this one of the just like a claim bundle?
Either completely free or it costs a little bit of affinity for Joaquin, which you're going to get from the side loop by defeating champions. So I'm going to check that. But it's functionally free. It's not like, oh, you get to this point and now pull out the credit card. It's more of, hey, you progressed the Augment faction to a certain point. Congratulations. I want to give you an epic officer because I like you and I'm glad you're playing my content.
Oh, that's so
That's
nice.
wonderful.
Look at that. All right. And taking a look at Joaquim, he's not exactly an officer that nobody is ever going to use. As a matter of fact, I might have to do a call out here very quickly to Hammy. See, Hammy's been in your ear, Mr. Tiger. This is essentially a minor strike team. And he claims that he's been angling for this for many, many months. This is an officer that's going to increase your apex barrier when attacked by a player while on a survey ship. I mean, this is strike team.
That is Hammy's strike team.
This is strike team for minors. What the heck is this, man? All right, you and Hammy got together on this, didn't you?
Absolutely. Of course. Who doesn't love a good Hammy? I think that it needs to be said there's a lot more work to be done than just this ability. This is the beginning. That's kind of the way I see it. We need a lot more power on surveys to make them even make a scratch. Surveys are kind of bad, and it's going to take a lot more than just one ability to fix that. And so Joaquim is a start in that direction. We have a couple stats also on Fleet Commander Khan that are going to help in that direction. And I really hope that we continue to push for this in the future and make there be fun, interesting trap crews on surveys and just an interesting new dynamic to PvP. I personally, this is anecdotal, but I'm sick and tired of getting hit OPC in my server all the time. Zero repercussions, nothing I can do. Like, that's not, sometimes even when I have the automated defenses on back in the day, people just ignore it and go for it. Like, we need to be having more interesting dynamics in our combat, and I think that bringing something new to surveys is a step in that direction, and I want us to continue that and explore that.
You know, you could just remove that little symbol and watch people's warships go boom when they hit a minor.
I agree. Get rid of that
I'm a
symbol.
big proponent of strategy, though. We need strategy. I think we need some kind of hybrid there.
Very good. You had mentioned this side loop, and I want to explain. I want to learn about Khan's champion because this is very, very unique. When I was reading from Jules about how you guys had built this seemed to be one of the most unique things about this loop. If players are tuned in and they're looking at Khan's champion, these 5 different levels, you refer to this as a side loop. Can you explain this? Can you teach on this?
Let's talk about it. So number one, it's going to be a while before we get here because it does unlock a superior bracket. But when you do get to the superior bracket, the way that it works is, you've all seen it if you've been playing the new loop. Whenever you hit the new reds, you're going to open up that chest afterward, and you're going to get these champion trophies. Okay? So you've been collecting these the whole time. So by the time this actually becomes available to you, I would imagine you have a nice little stockpile. These missions you're seeing here in the faction store, you are allowed to have one of each type active at a time. So right now we're looking at the cadet. Great. You can have one of these active. You can have one of the other one. You can have one of each difficulty if you want. And the idea is the harder the difficulty, the better the reward. It does cost more of the champion trophies to activate the higher ones, but again, comes back to ratio. In terms of how much spent versus how much rewarded, you get way more for doing harder difficulty. So think of it almost as a mini Q's trials. This is Khan's trials, all right? You're coming into Khan's world now. And so the way that this works, you pick the difficulty you want, you activate the mission, that will spawn a mission hostile near your station, just like it would, actually even better than Q's Trials, because Q's Trials is within systems around your station. This is going to be always in the same system as your station. So it's right by your station, it's a really powerful hostile, and you go 1v1 and you got to defeat this hostile. If you're successful, great, you get the reward. If you fail, that's okay. The mission stays active. You can come back to it whenever you build up the power for it, whenever, or you can activate one of the lower missions and do that one while you wait. This isn't ever lost until you complete it, and then you can reactivate it again. So you can only ever have one active. Once you complete it, you can activate another one, and it's how you get the currency to claim. There's 2 chests if you go back in the faction store. There's 2 chests you'll see here in the faction that are enabled champion chests, I believe. Champion Con Unlock and Champion Con Upgrade with the diamonds on it, because diamonds are awesome. And this is basically your path to getting Joaquim Affinity, and that's how you would unlock him, and that's also how you would get him for free, so by hitting these champions. Again, there's no payment required. All you have to do is be hitting difficult hostiles. As you hit them, you get these currencies, which is going to progress your faction. It's going to progress Khan. It's going to progress Joaquim as well. All that for free. And in the away team's the new expansion for the Priority 1 away teams research, all the research nodes at a certain point will start to cost the champion currency. And that champion currency is the one that you get from defeating the missions as a mission reward. And so not only is it good for con and all the faction stuff here that we talked about, but it's also going to be good for all that research there as well, which is going to be really good for your account.
We're referring to insignias is what you're saying. So the research is going to end up pulling insignias. Guys, presented by Jules Verne, which breaks down the cost and these 5 different levels of mission that Mr. Tiger is talking about, and the bosses that are going to come as a result. Looks like we've already had somebody just loving the content, Mr. Tiger, as they push through. We've seen all 5 of these hostels now, and the rewards of these insignias that are then going to be used back in not only the faction store for the skill points and the Joachim upgrade currency, but you're saying now also the research as well. I have seen that there are some mega grinders out there. Some people, look, Shelby right now says, I just made Superior today. You're 48 hours in. Isn't Superior 60 million rep? Now, I want to come back to that point right here, Shelby. This loop appears to be 100% grindable. It has been since the days of Franklin that there was no time gates on anything. Even the reputation, although small, is completely grindable. You get big chunks through the store that have cooldowns on those bundles, but every hostel you hit has the ability to boost that up. Where all content that is in the store with the reputation, there's no real time locks here, which kind of makes that like an instant win to me, because players can progress however they want. They can spend money to skip grind, but there are players out there that have already ground out 60 million rep. I mean, they're killing hostels like crazy. When you're looking at some of the previous arcs throughout the game, this one would be unique in the fact that it's not time gated in nearly any way, shape, or form. Is this an experiment, or can we look forward to more of this?
Or was it a boo-boo?
Shush.
It's intentional. It's intentional. And by the way, I don't think we're fully free of gates. They're lessened, and I like to explore lessened gates. Although I think that there's an ethical question there of how much we should be enabling people to just grind infinitely, because some people will just go all in. So that's kind of a tension that I often think through of how much should I allow someone in a single day? Should I allow them to spend every waking moment grinding hostels? And it turns out some people must be, because that's insane to get 60 million rep this fast. I'm genuinely shocked at that. But when it comes to gates, you do still see that on the refinery. And so while you can grind out the faction, you can't grind out all the credits right away, and that is going to take a bit more time. My personal stance, and this is not like a truism for everything we do on Star Trek, but my personal stance is that factions should very much reward you playing the game and be assigned. I think that's what factions originally were before, like, they got added into a lot of different places in the game. But originally it was like a status almost of, hey, I got to this bracket in the faction because I'm just good. I'm hitting hostels, I'm crewing properly, I'm finding the best ways to get rep, and I got here myself. And I kind of like that. I try to bring that back a little bit here so that we reward people for playing the game that they love, hopefully. And that's what you see with the rep. And now there are still some gates, and I do want to be ethical about it and not just allow for infinite, but that's some of the reasoning behind it. And will we see more of it? I sure hope so. Like, as long as people aren't saying, this is terrible, we don't want to see this, you're probably going to see more of it. I want to make a fun game.
You know,
I love that answer.
Yeah, it is a great answer. And I do chuckle sometimes because you can't make everybody happy. We have had people talking about the grind. We've had people talking about the events specifically, which are not necessarily reflective of the arc. Just the events themselves have high milestones. But then when you turn that coin around and you look at the fact that, hey, you can pretty much infinitely grind. And I say infinitely up to your hostile cap, but you can get more out of this arc by grinding more, which is very unusual in Star Trek Fleet Command. When we take a look at the cost of a lot of these chests. For example, in the epic wrath contents, you've got a single chest pull at 40 credits. In the rare single chest pull, 100 credits. These look to be very, very inexpensive compared to a lot of the other items that may be in the store. But even then, you look at the Ferengi, it's 120 credits. These look very obtainable, as if you are designing that players can have a few of these every single day. Maybe not all of them, but they'll be able to come in and choose multiple items per day. On the other hand, we see, and again, I don't mean to harp on these favors requiring multiple tens of thousands of credits. Is that the right mathematical design? Because again, it really does kind of discourage the chasing of favors in such a way that just their cost. I mean, I could pull 30 officer chests by the time I unlock one level of a favor. Caledon says there's 31,000 common credits required for just level ones of all these favors. Is that was that intended compared to a 25 credit cost?
So here's the logic behind it. Think of the favors as your permanent progression. Once you finish it, you're done. You never have to do it again. And the buffs that you get from those are pretty good buffs. Like if you look through the percents you're getting there, I don't know that there's anywhere else in the game that rivals some of those, especially for the G6 level ones. I think I said that at the start. Like it's really good. So I understand that it's a long form thing to work on, but that's exactly the intention. It's long form. So basically you're going to have this choice moment. I like choice. Number one, do I go for the instant gratification of I get these cool things in terms of the officers and other things that are going to help me progress? Or do I save and go for these long-term things that I progress? Or do I do something in the middle where I'm slowly saving a little bit and I'm buying here and there and I'm saving a little bit and I'm spending on the chests here and there? And players are going to have to decide what's going to work best for them. That's the intention. The other thing I'll say is that this grind and the credit sourcing is going to get a whole heck of a lot better. So I understand that right now, there's definitely more difficult choices to be had. In the future, it's not going to be on the same level as we scale into it. And as that 2-roll it's not a stretch goal, it's just a normal thing. And in general, there's more sources of that credit currency and enhancements to that credit currency. And so give it some time, but that's kind of the intention, is that you have that choice of do I go permanent or do I go now?
Okay, very good. Griffin, go ahead. So you were getting ready to make a comment.
It's a mind mess up for us, Tiger, because we are always programmed to say, well, it's the officers that are forever and the permanent, step up. So when we see the value of the officer being this and the value of the favor being that, but you're exactly right. It just elongates, what we're trying to accomplish. But again, the juice has to be worth the squeeze. In the case of some of your favors, I do agree with you that is the case.
Taking a quick peek back in here, I want to also point out these 5 officers, the Anorax choice, DeMarco choice, Janeway choice, Hugh choice, and Suitor choice. These are, at least 4 of these are remarkable officers, and really Suitors is up there as well. You just got a rare there with the other 4 epics, but DeMarco has been in desperate need of better sourcing. Anorax, we've talked about how amazing this guy is. And just so players are clear on how you earn these shards, these are these choice tokens that also come in the officer pool. So I think it's also a little bit of an extra carrot that's been dangled, because you could spend your credits on as little as the common recruit chest. And in that common recruit chest comes these Wrath choice tokens. So for example, we take a look in let's say you pull this thing every day. All right. Not only are you getting the officers that exist within this bundle, but you're also pulling extra Wrath choice tokens, which are equivalent to 1 shard per 100. So on top of the officers that you're earning out of that bundle, players have to also acknowledge, Tiger, they're basically getting a free epic shard, and in some cases, 2 free epic
2
shards
per 100, by the way.
2 shards per 100.
Yeah,
that's right. I see that there.
It depends on the ones. And in fact, Janeway and Hugh, I thought, they're a bit older now. Let's make them cheaper. And so Janeway and Hugh are actually 25 shards per pull as well.
Oh, wow.
If you have them, you won't see some of. Yeah, there you go. And so if you actually work out the math behind this, if anyone's curious, if you're doing a single pull in all your 4 different officer claims every single day, that's going to allow you to get 10 rare officer shards of your choice every day, or 5 of the of Anorax or DeMarco. And so you can choose. If you're doing double pulls, which at some point I fully plan for players to do double pulls, that's going to give you 500 choice tokens every day, which is 20 rare shards or 10 epic shards of your choice.
Wow.
Again, it comes back to choice. I very much want, like, we always do officer gotchas in our game where you pull random shards. This is one of the first times, at least, I have done a gotcha where not only do you get the random shards, but we're giving you some choice tokens as well. And that's what, in my opinion, makes this one of the best sources of officers. And I can't wait to see where this goes. And we're doing more. We got more plans to do even more with officers coming. Because who doesn't want filling out their officer roster? Come on, we need
Absolutely.
that. It takes so long.
Just as a quick side note here, Jules has calculated that by the time players get into the full swing of this loop, players could actually earn up to 80 shards per day. 80 shards per day through this loop. And that's obviously with full engagement, maximum pull, really engaged. And as Tiger is saying, it is going to be possible to get through, is going to be possible to get to that point very, very soon. 80 shards a day, which I think is absolutely incredible. D, final question for you, and thank you so very much for being here. We talked about this affinity, the Joachim affinity, and Tiger mentions that this is going to become important in the away team's research tree.
It's not affinity that we are using in the highest levels.
That's right.
Of
it's
the research,
those
it's
the emblems. Insignias.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, my fault. The affinity
exactly.
is for leveling the officer up. It's the insignias from the cons challenges. Gotcha. Okay.
When it comes to using that currency in the research tree, just to kind of mention what Tiger was mentioning before as well, this is basically your gateway into really maxing out those nodes and getting those highest values, which are just like massive and super valuable. And this means Apex Shred. I think we have ISO defense and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? But yeah, I would say I can totally jump in and mention some stuff about the away team store. There's a lot of stuff there. I think it's not something that's going to be prioritized by players initially, because first there's this massive loop that everyone is looking at right now. The Augment faction store with so many things in there. And then you have priority 1 away team assignments and its research tree. And then on the side, you have the store itself for the away teams. But yeah, there's some cool stuff in there, right? With us revitalizing the away teams feature, we have been given the chance to finally introduce G5 and G6 ship blueprint sourcing. So that's finally in there. And we also took the opportunity to just expedite the acquisition of these blueprints for G3 and G4 as well. So right now, even though you can go back and claim the, let's say, legacy away teams blueprints for the ships, you can also get extra by just engaging with the priority 1 away team assignments on top of it all. And then on top, like on the side of this entire thing, yeah, we have some faction-oriented mega claims that are going to have credits, reputation points, recruit tokens, all the juicy stuff in there that you can get tied to those particular factions. We have a special conquest champion claim, which is something that you have to unlock in the away team's research tree first. It's something that's going to give you more pioneers crests. It's going to give you some epic officer shards, some prime research currency, and yeah, stuff like that. And one thing that we also have that is kind of minor, but I think players are going to appreciate is we have the standard assignment booster. So for everyone who is, and this is something that kind of comes into play for players who are in lower grades, but as long as you do priority 1 away team assignments from Ops 26 and higher, you can do this claim as well, and it's just going to help you out in terms of getting speed ups and in terms of just progressing faster through the legacy away teams research tree. And we also have one Armada and Armory claim. And that one is just first focused around the Armada Center and progressing with that one. But we kind of squeezed in the Armory currency as well. It was like we had some discussions on Discord, and some players requested it. So we were like, yeah, let's just throw it in, because why not? It's going to be cool. And we've been super stingy for some reason with sourcing that currency. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. But I think as players kind of explore this, as they get more and more Pioneers crests and actually have the ability to invest them into the away team store as opposed to the research tree. There's going to be some very, very cool stuff in there.
I love that, and I really appreciate that. What is your favorite piece of this arc, Doman? And is there a piece of this yet that you think players have not yet discovered? Like, is there still a surprise around the turn?
I mean, I'm sure that as we go deeper, there's going to be more stuff that we see, and players are going to learn more about the loop and be able to optimize it better and stuff like that. For me, what's the highlight here and what's the most important thing is just our approach that we've had internally as a team. So as we were discussing, priority 1 away teams, the augment faction store, the value in there, the loop itself, all of that is like, this is design territory. This is Mr. Steiger's biggest strength. He's amazing, and he's been absolutely awesome to work with during this entire time. I feel insanely humbled to have been given the chance to work with him in this capacity. I have learned so much from him just in terms of his approach to things. So between, yes, offering a new loop, but then we're also revitalizing so much new content and adding value behind it and refreshing it and making it relevant again. I think that's great. I think in the long term, the Wrath of Khan arc, in spite of its rough start, it's gonna be considered as one of the best arcs in STFC for quite a while.
I hope you're right. I think that it definitely has the makings of being that, and largely due to the efforts by you and your partner, Mr. Tiger, who has designed some very creative and some very player friendly and rewarding arcs, despite the fact that Mr. Tiger loves that ramp up period. He loves a little bit of strife there in the beginning, and then coming in. And Mr. Tiger, you're very good at providing that bow at the end. What is your favorite piece about what we have introduced in the game here so far? And is there something that players are not yet capitalizing on that you know is around the turn?
Before I answer that, I want to say here's a little tidbit of information on the away team store, because I couldn't stop thinking about this, and I think we need to talk about it. In that store, the costs or the ops requirement to claim those blueprints is currently at ops. That's not okay. We're gonna drop that.
Yes.
You get those in advance.
Yes.
Come on. We gotta fix that. Okay. Anyway, that was just on my mind. Like, I would have to echo what Doman said there. Wow, like it's been so rewarding to see a package deal come together here. And I think to me that's the thing that's exciting, is that I understand that there's going to be growing pain points in different parts of the loop, but it's all connected. And we tried to showcase this through one of our narrative missions, and that's totally on me that like it was too hard. The champion chest doesn't become available until a later bracket, and so players did get stuck there. But the idea of that mission is exactly what gets me excited about this arc. You start with the hostiles. You destroy those. You go to the faction. You claim there. You get your away assignments. You go there. You get your currency. You go to the research tree. You get con. It's all a package deal. And I just love when like the story comes together like this. And now we add on the incredible teammates I get to work with on the narrative side that just make it feel con-like, and everything's con. It's a con quest. It's Joachim. You get to build affinity with Joachim. And even the super weapon that implodes your core. It's all Trekkie. It's all thematic. It all fits. And every single person I get to work with, I'm blessed to work with on my team, is running at maximum power. Like, shout out to Doman. For me, it's easy. It's 6:30. For him, it's in the wee hours of the morning. But
it's 3:30 in the morning for him right now.
Exactly. You know how inspiring.
Well, shout out to both of you for also providing us with all the information you did pre-Arcfall, so we could really spend time teaching and educating right out of the gate. That was a huge improvement this month around. I want to say thank you to both of you for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And let's keep doing that. Like, you're welcome, and like thank you for being involved in it. Like I love these chats. One of the most rewarding things to me about working in games is working with incredibly competent people to make incredibly fun experiences, and then sitting down with the people playing it and watching them strategize, watching them talk, listening to their feedback. Like, when people have negative sentiment, it's not an attack on me. It's an opportunity to do something different. I'm always going to throw a little curveball in there. There's always going to be some pains. You're never going to please everyone, but I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn from all of you, and I love that. And so it's an addictive thing, and it's just so rewarding to see my teammates' hard work pay off. And so that's kind of the thing for me. Keep playing the arc. You'll scale into it. There's a ton more to come. Definitely want to mention, keep an eye on those revenge hostiles. Wink, wink. It would be cool if that super weapon would be turned off when I could auto grind. We'll see how that goes. But that's where I'll leave it. That's what I'm excited about, to see how this can scale. This is the beginning.
You guys are incredible. You're both heroes. Thank you, especially Doman for being here in the middle of the night. Ladies and gentlemen, from Scopley's Game Design here for Star Trek Fleet Command, the authors of The Wrath of Khan and the Augment expansion. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Doman and Mr. Tiger. Thank you guys very, very much. Appreciate you guys very much for being here.